Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 129. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad to be back with you guys for this Tuesday. Dave, glad to be back in the old hosting chair. Appreciate everyone filling in for me last week while I was on my vacation. Shout out to Josh and Owen and Jonathan and Tom and the whole crew and Joel Corey. Great interview, Dave, you had with Joel Corey on a Friday show, but good to be back with you.
Yeah, it takes a village to replace to not only raise a child, but to replace a child. No.
Oh, that's how we're going to start. I'm going to go back on vacation.
No. I hope you had a good time. My wife wants to know if you got any key lime pie heading her way.
I don't. I should have got some on the Key West Airport because apparently you can buy an entire key lime pie on your plane ride back home. But I had some key lime pie down there. It's fantastic.
Good. It is fantastic down there. And I really am not a huge key lime pie consumer, but yeah, I mean they absolutely do have great key lime pie down there. So I hope you had a good time, some rest and relaxation, and it's almost time to get back to work again.
Yeah, training camp. We'll talk about here in a moment the training camp news. But Dave, I want to start with just an interview that happened this morning on NFL Network's Good Morning Football with Steelers' new starting right guard Trey Turner, talking about his preview of the season. Have some articles up on his comments up on the site today. And he's talking about, blocking for Ben. And it's interesting that, he's gone from a guy who's blocked for mobile, scrambling type quarterbacks like Cam Newton and Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert the majority of last season with the Chargers. And now he's blocking for a, very much a pocket passer in Ben. But he kind of says that's an advantage because he knows where his quarterback's going to be. And in some sense, that's easier to block for. So excited to block for Ben, excited to be around a veteran Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, I guess this is the perfect time to mix in this other kind of, news story that's circling around from a Ryan Burr, who, someone who's verified, I guess, has spent time in the Pittsburgh media before. I didn't even know who he was until this morning, to be honest with you. And I don't know how much to read into some of his tweets that are out there that I think by the end of the day are going to make, or already starting to become a story of some sorts, something along, and I guess we can kind of combine them in with Trey Turner and all like that. I don't know, to read these tweets, maybe Trey Turner better be ready for a super mobile Ben Roethlisberger this year. Ryan Burr tweeted out. Basically, it's all pro Ben Roethlisberger stuff. Says Ben's camp says he hears everything. Best shape of his life narrative that he takes a yoga class and then has a beer is just wrong. Source goes on to say that from an arm standpoint, Ben is more likely to win his first league MVP than finish outside top 10 in passing. Really, that doesn't mean anything.
Meaningless. It's a very specifically weird analysis there that means nothing.
Ben Camp says biggest concern is weight loss. He has been so driven since season ended. Source says his diet is stricter than Brady. I'm assuming that means Tom Brady, and all the diets that we've heard about, or the diet that Brady's been on over the years. I guess this means a lot of avocado ice cream for Ben Roethlisberger. Look, this is going to be a story. It looks like on this Tuesday, but I mean, I don't know how many times we've tackled it. I guess this time of the offseason, Ben's fat or Ben is in the best shape of his life. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like an annual thing, right? We go through a portion where Ben's fat, lazy, out of shape, and then we get to training camp and Ben's in the best shape of his life. I can't remember the last time that Ben showed up to a training camp where I said to myself, you know what? Ben does not look like he's in shape, period. Now, there may be different degrees of shape or whatnot, but I can't remember the last time where I've thought to myself, oh boy, I don't know what the heck has this guy been doing this offseason. So I mean, this really has a Tuesday Seinfeld episode feel to it, right? I mean,
It has a July 13th feel.
okay,
There's just nothing going on.
maybe that's there. Now back to kind of what Trey Turner said this morning. Looking, knows where Ben will be in the pocket. I think that's pretty spot on. I don't think you got to worry too terribly much about Ben running around and extending a lot of plays in 2021. The biggest kind of takeaway, especially from an offensive standpoint, look, this is a Trey Turner once again. I think that has yet to practice with his new team. But he sounds very confident in the Steelers getting back to ground and pound style football. He's obviously watched Najee Harris from afar. You wouldn't expect Trey Turner to come out and say, you know what, this kid does not look like the real deal. He said in so many words, he looks very prepared and really excited to block for him. Thinks he's going to, surprise a lot of people, yada yada. So, just the standard rah pre-training camp stuff, I think, making the rounds. But I'll tell you this: Trey Turner is not a stranger to going on the TV, especially on the NFL Network as of late.
Yeah, I mean, it's all good news to hear. He's excited. It all sounds good on paper right now. We'll see it in action. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot to really take away from this stuff. I know Turner's talked about the Steelers offense being ground and pound and having that physical identity, but they haven't the last couple of years. That's why they're retooling this entire offensive line. So hopefully Turner can bring some of that back, but that's not where they're at today. So with him and the new changes with offensive line coach, OC, running game, running back, and Harris, hopefully that can start getting you back to that point. That is certainly Clem's foundational principle: is being physical, being nasty, being tough and physical up front. But that unit was not anywhere close to that standard really the last 2 to 3 seasons.
I went on to say the new offensive line is ready to start the party. Just like Alex in Key West, right?
Yeah. Wild time.
Starting the party. Look, I mean, once again, it sounds all good from what we've heard all off season. Obviously, ever since the last season ended, we've kind of heard, the directive sent down from Art Rooney II. Got to run the ball, not only better but more successfully, more consistently on a successful basis. We'll see. That's where we're at in this thing right now. We'll see, and especially early in the season, you start off with a road game against the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, I think, man, obviously, I'll probably come time I'm going to pick against the Steelers for that game. In that game, they're still 6.5 point favorite or underdogs for a reason in that one. But I think if they come out to shoot and they do end up beating Buffalo in that road opener, and they do so with a lot of with a successful running game, then I don't know how you don't circle that maybe as being the signature win of Mike Tomlin's career to date, outside of the Super Bowl and playoffs and all like that goes.
Yeah, it would be a great way to start the season. Not only just the fact that you've won, but you've beaten a really good team in Buffalo who's beat you the last 2 seasons, and it hopefully would mean the offensive line played at least decent. And you kind of figure this offensive line will hopefully grow into itself throughout the year, get better as the year goes along as they kind of gel and guys get experience and stuff like that. But if they can come out of the gate and get a victory, then hopefully that'll accelerate that progression. So and hopefully lead to better things down the road. So would all be well and good, but long ways to go to get to that point.
Yeah, how would you characterize? I mean, the whole Big Ben diet and best. I mean, just like what you said, July 13th, 14th fodder, right?
Right. I mean, it's basically the free space on the Steelers offseason bingo card. I mean, every single season we're talking about this. Now, I mean, to some extent, I can understand it because, again, last year was so focused on rehab and the elbow and learning how to throw again and mechanics and all that. And, of course, the COVID stuff, didn't really give you any chance to focus on some of the conditioning and other type of football things. So I could imagine that this year's offseason schedule has been a lot nicer to Ben in a lot of those ways. So I imagine he's in good shape and ready to go. And I think there's clear benefits of him being another year removed from the elbow surgery and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm sure that's true to some extent. I think there are reasons to believe that he's in good shape, and I'm sure was very upset by the loss last year and probably knows this at least could be his last season. So he wants to approach his offseason and train as hard as possible for what could be his final season in the NFL to win a Super Bowl. So I'm sure there's validity to it, but I mean, again, it's offseason fodder.
I would like to let everybody know that I am not in the best shape of my life.
When were you in the best shape of your life?
I don't know, 16, 17. I mean, as far as, just general, maybe, looks, maybe, 28-inch waist, 28 length, going to the beach quite a bit, and yeah.
All right, ladies.
Be sure to email the podcast. That was how many damn years? It's been man. Today's the anniversary. I know it means nothing to you. Live Aid. I'm sure you've heard about Live Aid, right? Yeah. The benefit concert. Feeding Africa and all like that. Man, it's now been 30, I think that happened, 85? So it's been 36 years since that happened. I saw that roll across the Twitter machine this morning. The only reason I really kind of knew ahead of time, because for some reason when Bohemian Rhapsody's on, I cannot not watch it. It's one of those movies, and I'm doing something last night, and that came on, so I watched the tail end of that, and obviously the tail end. Have you seen that movie?
The one about Queen?
Yeah, about Freddie Mercury.
No, I haven't. Okay. Actually, it's just I don't have many hot takes. I think Queen's an overrated band.
Oh no, really?
I'm sorry to return with information. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I think all their songs are 7 minutes long, and it's only the good part's only a minute long, and it's 4 minutes into the song, and they just drag on forever and ever and ever just to get to the guitar riff. I don't know.
Now look, I'll admit I did not grow up. I mean, I obviously grew up knowing who Queen was, but I was more, heavy metal and Black Sabbath and Maiden and along those lines. The older I got, the more appreciation I think I had for Queen's music. I wasn't there standing in line buying the Queen albums,
Mm-hmm.
But I really think as a band and as a lyricist and songwriter, I think Freddie Mercury was absolutely incredible, man. And
they just could have shortened those songs up to November Rain length.
Yeah, but I mean back then that was kind of it was the break from the norm, the cookie cutter kind of stuff. It was kind of, and really the way his performance and as flamboyant as he was, kind of more of a theatrical aspect of it. So
yeah, I'm sure the concerts were awesome. I'm sure, and yeah, I mean, it was very much different from the norm. But I don't know. I mean, no one should take my music takes seriously.
All right, that's surprising. I would have taken you. I would have thought maybe you would have went the other way with that and think, oh man, Queen's one of those older rock bands that I really like. But okay, interesting.
All right, Dave. Let's.
I don't know how did I get us down that rabbit hole. Back to best shape of your life.
Yeah, with Ben, again, I mean, it's good to hear. I think there is probably some truth to it, but I mean, it's not going to mean much here once the Steelers take on the Bills here week 1, so not worth talking about a lot. Let's talk about some things that are worth discussing, though, Dave. Steelers, I know you guys had mentioned this last week since that's when the news came out. The Steelers have announced their training camp schedule and practice availability for fans, for the public at Heinz Field. This year, they'll have 12 practices open to the public. Does that include the potential Friday one as well? Does that include that in the 12? Do you know?
I
don't think it does.
I don't think it does. I don't know. What are they leaving that open for? Maybe a potential Friday Night Lights? I don't know.
I'm guessing that could be a potential night practice, kind of, since there is no Friday Night Lights in Latrobe. But anyway, so we know 12 right now, and we have tickets to all 12, or I have tickets to all 12 practices, so I should be out there for our 12. Appreciate everyone who's reached out and helped out to help me get there and get, sure we had tickets for every single practice. So training camp reports will be back this year. Really excited about that. Obviously, it'll be in a little different form, maybe just, I'd rather than be at Latrobe. I think it's easier to do some of the reports, and there's more space and things like that, and I don't have to get my bag checked every single day and all those kind of things. But Very grateful. And I was surprised. I know you had said this on the podcast. I thought maybe they would give fans like 2 or 3 practices open and that was it. But they're doing almost the whole slate, which is a pretty cool gesture.
Yeah, not that one. I've never been a fan of setting your sights low and being thankful for what maybe you get. Kind of like that. But I was thinking that, oh man, maybe it's going to be 3, 4, 5 practices at the most, and that kind of thing. So was super excited to hear that 12 and I guess possibly even 13 practices in total there. Question. Did you have to choose your seating already, or are you going to be free to kind of roam around, or how does that work, or do you even know?
Yeah, it is assigned seats. I don't know if it'll be strict rules to that or not, but you did have to choose a specific seat when you got your tickets.
Were you able to choose a specific kind of seat that you wanted, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's only a couple sections they opened up. It's not the whole stadium. It's like 108 to like 113 that are open. And so I'm not sitting in the same place every single day, but I mean, I should be able to I can bring binoculars, right? Someone who goes to these games to Heinz Field regularly, you can bring binoculars, I think, right? Let me know on that, but I'll make it work.
Is that are those sections? I'm not familiar with the sections. Is that like sideline?
Yeah, they're sideline.
So they're not in. So you're not stuck in the end zone or anything like that,
No, I believe they're sideline.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So make sure. Look, if you go out to training camp practices out at Heinz Field, Alex probably won't be hard to find there, but yeah, grateful to have that back, and I know a lot of people, including myself, are really looking forward to those post-practice reports. I guess one of the upsides is how far is Heinz Field from your house? I mean, it's obviously closer than having to drive to Latrobe, I would think, and that means you should be home quicker and get those things written up, and then us get the kind of the evening podcast, I guess, knocked out fairly quick, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's closer. It's only like 20, 25 minutes away from downtown Pittsburgh from here, but with traffic and getting out of the city and all that kind of stuff, it might not actually be quicker, and I loathe driving to the city, but I'm going to have to get over that pretty quickly because I'll be doing that a lot this year. But as you said, practices are earlier. They're like noon to 1:30, somewhere in there, instead of like 2:55 at Latrobe. So the report should go up earlier. The podcast will go up earlier and all those kind of things. So that's a benefit here.
All right, maybe we need to get you a hotel in the city there, huh?
I'm 25 minutes away. I mean, it's fine. I mean, I've made the drive already. It's not a big deal. And plus, I'm not going to hit rush hour or anything like that. But that's just me complaining. Just happy that we have some training camp stuff after obviously not having anything last year, and that really sucked. So we'll have some information for you guys.
All right, good deal.
Some other news of the day, Dave announced this morning, just a little bit of housekeeping here. Actually, should mention 2 retirements here, I guess, while we're at it. This morning, Roosevelt Nix, former Steelers fullback, announced his retirement, had an Instagram post that seemed to strongly hint at it. I reached out to Rosie Nix, confirmed that he is, in fact, retiring from the NFL, former undrafted free agent, a great D tackle at Kent State, turned linebacker briefly, and then turned fullback by Pittsburgh, made the Pro Bowl in 2017, officially hanging up his cleats. And Anthony Chickolo the other day also announced his retirement. Former, 5th or 6th round pick of the Steelers, former base end at Miami, played outside linebacker in Pittsburgh, good special teams player. He's retiring as well.
Absolutely, and obviously neither one will probably make huge ripples across the NFL, and maybe not the the Steelers fan base as well too. But I mean, look, there was a time you could have easily formed probably a Roosevelt Knicks fan club. And
I was leading that club, man. I love it.
Right, and that's where I'm going with this. I mean, the guy tremendous on special teams. Boy, so many clips of him just throwing people out of the club, and was good on punt block team. Man, he could probably have about 4 or 5 more. He was just inches away from as well too. And as a lead blocker for a couple of years there, I mean, just absolutely phenomenal there. But I think the injuries kind of slowly took their toll on him, and the lifespan, or NFL lifespan of a career span of a fullback in the NFL is not long generally, And but I think he, for him to be an undrafted free agent and to be come out as a defensive player and to make the switch and then do what he did, he earned a pretty decent contract, that he had signed as well too there. So he definitely more than beat the odds when it comes to players such as himself, and really for lack of a better word, and I know Anthony Chicklow won't be on anybody's top 200 Steelers list or 300 or maybe even 500, but he kind of beat the odds too. Was a decent special teams player. Actually parlayed it into one decent kind of 1 year payday, I think, with the Steelers when it came to a signing bonus there. So in so many words, for him to get a second contract and to hang around as long as he did, especially kind of coming out of Miami as that, what is he? Is he a base defensive end? Is he an outside linebacker? That kind of player, and to be drafted as late as he was, and really he was an East-West Shrine Game kid, if I remember correctly, and not even a Senior Bowl guy, if memory serves me there. So in so many words, he kind of beat the odds as well too, and you kind of got to tip your hat to guys that are able to do that.
Yeah, for a guy like Nix, he was famously like the first guy cut on Hard Knocks when he was with Atlanta. And I spoke with Rosie Nix last summer and kind of talked about his journey. There's a post in the article about his retirement that links to that. And he was a substitute teacher, didn't know if he was going to play football again. And the Steelers give him a chance and compared him to the fullback after briefly playing him at linebacker. And he makes the team. And just guys who overcame really long odds and had successful careers. I know we don't always think about it that way because they're not, multi-Pro Bowlers, all-pro, Hall of Fame type stuff. But, man, you play 5-6 years in the NFL, really for anybody, but especially a day 3 draft pick or an undrafted guy or anyone in that situation to have that kind of career, catch multiple contracts. That's something most guys who even make it to the NFL simply don't do. So that is, I think, a really, solid story to talk about.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, let's see what else we had to talk about today. Another cool piece of history here, and shout out to Pro Football Reference, who I'm sure, I know it was an unbelievable amount of work to do this. Whenever we talk about sacks, I always have to have the caveat of, sacks didn't become an official NFL stat recognized by the leagues until 1982. So there's a big chunk of history, of course, including the Steelers' 70 dynasty that's still current that doesn't have official sack numbers. And these numbers are not official, but they were tracked by Pro Football Reference unofficially of almost complete sack totals from 1960 to 1981. And so now we have what I really still consider to be official numbers just based on their tracking and charting and the effort that was put in for the Steel Curtain and for that era of football. And so just some updating numbers. You can read the whole post on Steelers Depot, sticky to the top of the page. But L.C. Greenwood, the most sacks of anyone of the Steel Curtain with 78. Joe Green right behind with 77.5. Dwight White with 55. Andy Russell with 38. Jack Ham 25.5. Jack Lambert 23.5. And Donnie Shell 9.5. So you can read the whole post on Steelers Depot. Play around with the information on Pro Football Reference. But really cool stuff. Really cool window of data there from PFR.
I wonder if at any point they will get, if they'll be made more official. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wonder what it would take for the league to officially recognize that as true. I don't know what it would take.
Yeah, I don't know either. And here's the bad thing about it. Unless you, and I'm sure they're able to watch some old games to have compiled this, but I'm guessing a lot of this transpired through game books. Mostly. Is that what they said in that post?
Well, they didn't say exactly the breakdown, but they said it was game film, game books, photos. They worked with NFL PR teams to gather this information. So they didn't break down exactly percentages of what came from what, but it was a combination of a bunch of things.
Look, I have a lot of those old game books, and they're brutal.
Brutal in what sense?
They're brutal to have to go through line by line.
Right.
Some are typed out, some are handwritten. I mean, it's they're tough, man. And, obviously they weren't termed sacks, right? I think they were, quarterback tackled behind, for a loss and having to go through it that way. And if you don't have the actual video of the play, I mean, it is quite an undertaking to do that kind of stuff. So, look, we've kind of had the kind of unofficial tally for years now. I think even the Steelers have posts on their website, about kind of unofficial sack numbers. I have to see how closely the two resemble each other. You would think they'd be spot on with.
Now, I know there were some differences. I
Were
think
there?
the number on
Okay.
Joe Green was a little bit lower or higher than where PFR has him at.
Okay, that's interesting in and of itself. There, how there are a few discrepancies in that. There, I don't know what it would take for these to ever become official kind of stuff. But and look, I mean, you look at some of these. I know sack totals for careers, and you kind of say, man, LC, James Harrison has more than him. Now, don't forget, folks, that they used to just only run the football for
Right.
the most part. 60s and 70s and on into the 80s and things along those lines. So when you look at kind of sacks per pass attempt and all like that, it really kind of gives more. It helps contextualize the actual numbers that the Steelers Steel Curtain had.
Right, and they just played fewer games back then. They're playing 14 games. So, for example, in 1974, the Steelers defense had 52 sacks. That was one sack every 7.5 pass attempts by the opponent. Last year, the Steelers defense had 56 sacks, but that averages out as one sack every 10.4 pass attempts. So, the context there is very important.
Right, and that's one thing that we try to do, and always that kind of Steelers Depot has been founded on. I like to think back, the fact that we try to contextualize as much as possible as we possibly can. We like to take narratives and either create them soundly or take flimsy narratives and just rip them up to shreds. And
you like that second one a lot better.
We love that second one much better. In fact, I think it's kind of what made Steelers Depot what it is the ability to rip some of those flimsy, major media or even local media narratives to shreds.
Yeah. So another thing I want to add too, and I'll have a post on this today because I didn't even realize this till a buddy on Twitter had pointed it out. I saw the number, but I didn't make the connection. Based on PFR's number, again, unofficially, official, whatever you want to call it, but the Steelers actually have a new single-season sack leader. Right now, everyone thinks it's James Harrison with 16 back in whatever year that was, 08, 09. But it's actually Big Daddy Lipscomb, who had 17 and a half in, I think it was 1961, to lead the Steelers and to lead the league that year. And Big Daddy's one of my favorite players. I had a terrible take on him a couple weeks ago. Super underrated guy.
You marveled at his size, I think, when we all went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame together, right?
Yeah, he was the first NFL big man who could move. He was like 6'6", 300 pounds, but a really strong athlete. There was a clip actually of him with like a 50-yard interception return I found on Twitter the other day, and just him and Stautner, who kicked out to end when he got traded to the Steelers from the Colts. But really good duo, really good player. And yeah, 17 and a half sacks now, what I consider to be official and the most in Steelers history. We'll see if TJ Watt can break it with a 17-game season this year. I imagine there's a chance that he will at some point in his career. But Big Daddy Lipscomb didn't go to college, but man, he was a heck of a player. It
sure would be nice at some point. I doubt. I don't know if they're archived somewhere in somebody's basement or what, but I've always thought, and you know how what a large collection of games that I have overall, but to have some of those from the 60s, and it sure would be nice to sit back and watch some of those sometimes, especially as kind of, I guess, my blogging kind of career starts winding down here to post that career, to be able to sit back and just watch some of those games. And look, I mean, even as a hobby, kind of chart them and those kind of things there. So it'd be nice to be able to uncover and see some of those old sacks and all like that.
Yeah, for sure. But really good effort there by PFR. Fantastic work. I don't even know how many man hours and years and all that took, but really valuable stuff there. So hat tip to those guys. Dave, you mentioned us really liking to put things in the context and really diving deep into this stuff. We did a couple of studies on Ben here the last few days. I'll let you choose which one you want to start with. I know we did a big team effort on the Ben tipping play study that's become a hot button issue all of a sudden last week, and you had a great contextualization on Ben's medium throws at 10 to 15 yards and kind of some good information and good stats and context there. So which one do you want to talk about first?
I mean, let's talk with the most popular. I mean, this thing kind of came out of nowhere, even though it's something that you and I that I posted on Twitter after Ben's week 1 game against the Giants last year, and I think we even talked about it before that or right after it at the time. But I don't think either one of us, I think we probably should have went deeper at the time or not too long after, because I think my initial takeaway was what our eventual takeaway of our most recent study was, and that was the fact that this stuff kind of happens so late in the pre-snap process that it makes you kind of wonder how much of a tell it really is. I mean, as someone just watching film and not having to worry about controlling a 305-pound tackle or looking for pre-snap keys, yeah, you can sit there and rattle off looking right before the ball snaps and say, this is going to be a pass, this is going to be a run, this is going to be a pass, this is going to be a run. Those kind of things there. But that's not the way the game of football is played. Okay, so that's, I didn't run with it last September, and I know we kind of glossed over it briefly there, but all it takes is something to get viral on the internet, and some TikToker, I guess, probably came across my tweet and then expanded on it, and then it was treated like it's new news, and boy, it just blew up. So at that point, after it blew up for, I don't know, 60 something hours, I basically told Alex, I said, I guess we should probably, run through this pretty deep and go from there. And thankfully, we've got a great staff on Steelers Depot, and everybody has Game Pass subscriptions. And it really took less than, I don't know, 12 hours in total for us to say, all of us need to run through the all 22 of every game, look at shotgun snaps of Ben, tabulate, what was a tell, what wasn't a tell, get all that data turned into Alex, and then Alex to kind of write up a report on that. So we're blessed to be in a situation where we can stop on a dime and do that kind of study. And with that, I'll let you kind of go over what the results showed.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we looked at every single one of Ben's shotgun snaps last season and charted, run plays, pass plays, and if there was a tell. And two main conclusions here. The first one being is that, yes, it is true. Just to answer the question, is this a tell or is this just being, cherry picked and stuff like that? No, it is a real tell on run plays. He tipped it off with his back foot flat 94.5% of the time, 172 of 182 plays. And in the pass game, when his back foot was lifted, it was an 89.6% pass tell, 567 of 633 pass plays. Majority of the exceptions are really like RPOs and screens and rollouts and stuff that have options on the play. So that's the exception to that. So overall, it's pretty consistent and a pretty obvious tell. But as we pointed out, there's a lot of context here. And the big one is that it's happening really late in the snap, not even like 2 seconds before, but usually like a half second right before the snap of the football. So I don't want to say that it isn't an issue, because I think there were a number of snaps where the tell was happening, his back foot being lifted a second or two before the snap. So I don't want to say that it's a non-story completely, but it's not nearly this big story that some people are making it out to be, because it's a lot easier to look at this tell when you can go through the all 22 and take screenshots and put a montage together and stuff like that than it is in the actual application of it when you're playing defense, when you have different keys, when you're reading the tackle, you're reading the guard, or you're trying to see if Ben's foot is up or not, and there's a sightline issue and stuff like that. So there's a lot of context there that says that this is not probably the hindrance people make it out to be, and also it appears to be that Ben's done this his entire career, and I think he's had a pretty good career. So I don't think this is a dramatic issue for the Steelers.
Right, and for a defensive, for any defensive player to be able to sit there the whole pre-snap process and focus on that, right? That would be tough to do. Look, there's a lot of shots where I had to slow it down, and
I even had trouble sometimes. Yeah.
Look at, and I did. I think I went through like 6 or 7 games myself there, but and obviously being right there on the field and closer to it is a little bit. But there's so many things going through your head I would think is a defensive player. And look, we're not done with this by any stretch of imagination. We're gonna try to get a few. In fact, we don't want to jinx something, but we got a couple interviews possibly happening in the next couple weeks with some former NFL players, and if indeed those happen, we intend to ask about how, especially the defensive players, maybe that we talk to, say, look, is this really something that you can focus on, play in, play out? And,
Right.
and get the tell that way. Without a doubt, once again, there is, and the numbers show it. There's a truth to it being the tell. The larger question there is how, how beneficial is that tell in the pre-snap process? And obviously the radios are turned off to the helmet. So, I mean, the amount of communication that would have to go on, on the field between players that quick, now, have there probably been time or two? Look, my biggest takeaway from all of this, Alex, after watching as much tape that I watched on this and reading just the actual numbers that you presented, is how he squares up when it's a run. More than anything, I think it's a lot easier during the pre-snap process to look at Ben's kind of stance and that flat-footedness and that kind of that open left foot to help with that pivot. I think of all of the tell in there, I think it's easier when in shotgun to be able to pick that out more than anything there.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think it's a bigger issue with the run than it is the pass, and it's not even the tell isn't so much as you said the foot being flat, but it is kind of the balance and the weight transfer, and it just his back foot being kind of open up to the running back a little bit, oftentimes, so he can pivot and hand the ball off. That's probably more of a tell and a clearer and more beneficial to the defense than lifted versus just the simple act of his foot being flat. So I think that is a bigger issue for sure. Again, I don't think it's a huge issue. But I do think that's if there's one area that's hurting him a lot or hurting him more than others, I should say, it would be that.
Right. Now, once again, we're nothing but we sit in our mom's basement and, in other words, what if we pick this stuff out? And I'm not demeaning us by any stretch, but I'm having a little bit of fun with this. But you would think that NFL teams know this to some degree, right? This is not new to Mike Tomlin, Matt Canada, Ben Roethlisberger, anybody in the Steelers organization. At least you wouldn't think this is new. And the fact that you can kind of really go back and pick up a lot of this all the way back to Ben's rookie season. And here's the other thing. We haven't really gone across the league wide. I mean, you even did some Mason Rudolph snaps and kind of saw a trend there in the sample size on top of it there. You could probably go through a lot of quarterbacks in the league if you went through enough games and probably to some degree pick out the same similar kind of tells, couldn't you?
Sure, I'm sure you could. And as I said on the live stream last night, Ben has had other tells in his career, the grabbing the face mask as the hot route to AB or whoever. I mean, that was an obvious tell. And usually the best tells are the ones that are happening well before the snap based on stance or, remember AB would always mess with his gloves, before a pass player, before he's going to get the football. So those are probably more valuable tells overall. And again, I mean, there's always tells that quarterbacks have. I know Bill Belichick, and I've done this before in my scouting. A lot of times the way a quarterback looks is kind of rhythmic. And you can get the feel for the snap based off that. He'll look, for example, a quarterback will look left, right, left, and then hike the football, stuff like that. So every quarterback to some degree probably has a tell, and that's all gets researched and scouted and things like that. So again, is it a tell? Sure. Is it something to work on? Maybe. I mean, it's kind of probably deeply ingrained in Ben at this point, so it might be kind of hard to change. But bottom line is it's not this massive issue that I think some people think it is.
I agree. I think the only thing we do, I mean, we've presented the data out there. We've given our opinion on this, on how big a deal or not how big of a deal we think this is. And now once we get into the season, we'll see how much, if there's any notice.
Do you think it'll change anything? Do you think there'll be an adjustment this season? I don't think there will be.
I don't think there will be either. Here's the thing: as big of a story as this has become, you would think he's going to be asked about it in the next couple of weeks, right? Or do
That's
you?
a good question. Well, I would like him to be asked about it, but it's an awkward question to ask.
How's it an awkward question when we have the data to support that? I mean, it'd be one thing if you just had a TikToker going through it and picking it out and all like that. But I mean, we've got the data now.
No, yeah, no. I say awkward just in the sense of everyone's trying to have a chummy relationship media wise with Ben. You never want to get on Ben's bad side from a media standpoint. I don't know if that could be felt like some sort of criticism or. I don't know. I just wonder how someone would phrase that question. But I would.
I need to take a break here and find my wife and find out where the Ben Roethlisberger Christmas cards have been going all these years.
Don't get him Christmas cookies. The diet, I don't think, is going to allow that.
Oh yeah, best. I mean, I don't want him not in the best shape of his life. You see where I'm going here? I mean, it's a good question to ask. I think. I mean, if you're worried about Ben getting offended by asking him about best shape of his life or Tom Brady diet, or what do you think about, is there really do you really feel that this may or may not be a pre-snap tell? Then you're doing it wrong, I think.
Sure. No, I agree. But you know how the game gets played sometimes. I think this is probably just a subconscious thing for Ben. He doesn't even notice or realize it. It just, and he's just so, because he's done it his whole career, it seems like. So this is just what he's always done. And again, he's had a Hall of Fame career out of it, so I think he's doing okay.
It gave us a little bit of traffic to the website. We got some got some clicks, and what's the term they use for all that? Did we? What's the headline?
Clickbait? I don't know.
Yeah. I guess we Did we clickbait it enough?
I don't think so.
Did we get enough clicks and likes?
I don't think it was clickbait. That's something we don't want to do.
I'm teasing. I mean, it just. I mean, it's hardcore study, and it's kind of the things that we do, and the way that thing blew up, and the direction that narrative was going, and fire everybody, and how did they not notice this? Hopefully, the people that read the site religiously and listen to this podcast, the concern level has gone down a little bit.
Yeah, but great job by the entire team. That's Tom and Josh and Owen and Jonathan and yourself, obviously, Dave, putting that together, because that was because we first started talking about it, it was like I could not do this on my own. I don't think any one of us could do it all on their own without it taking days to do. So the fact that we can do it as a team and get it turned around really quickly is a testament to the group we have.
Absolutely, and I wouldn't trade. I mean, we can send that back. That just lets us know that any time that we need to do anything, and I think that's the quickest and most thorough that we've had to go through. Really, How many snaps was that?
I can tell you. I mean, what did I say? 600 something plus 100, and I mean it was like 800 plus snaps.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll have to start adding that as a charting. I don't know, but interesting nonetheless. And I'm just proud that we were able to power through that as quickly as we did.
Tommy just got like a sixth sense of, oh God, more charting, another column to add. We'll watch for it. I mean, again, I don't think it's going to change, but we'll at least have an eye on it during the season. Remind us if we forget, because I may forget because I'm getting caught up in what the guard is doing on a play or something. All right, Dave, another study you did was contextualizing Ben's, quote, middle distance throws, and there's a lot of context there in this contextualization that you think is worth sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you thought about it as a whole, but going through, filtering through some stats like I always like to do this time of year, and boy, I mean, is there a better time of off season right now to watch tape, because there's just nothing really kind of going on. You have some opportunities to really go a lot deeper into certain areas, and I was filtering through some stats, and specifically, look, I know there's been a lot of talk about Ben and the deep ball, and by deep ball, I'm meaning, look, the NFL terms a deep pass anything more than 15 yards in the air past the line of scrimmage. A lot of other people deem a deep pass 20 or more yards past the line of scrimmage. I tend to go more towards the 20 is what I've been focusing on a lot, and I know a lot of our talks, especially this offseason, has been on that. Without a doubt, nobody, I think, should argue right now that look, the narrative is wrong that Ben needs to throw more 20 yards or more down the field. That's just wrong. Just look at last season. I think he had the fourth most attempts in the NFL of throws 20 or more yards down the field. You'd like to see the percentage completion go up, right? That's something that we've already talked about. So throw that aside. Yes, we'd like to see Ben complete more of his passes 20 or more yards down the field. All right. I wanted to look at more of that area 10 to 15 yards. That area that really kind of separates the men from the boys. I really think, Alex. I mean, a lot of instances too. You're in 3rd and 9, and third and long situations. Those guys that can complete the passes that distance and convert, and the guys that can the quarterbacks around the league that on, let's say, 75 or more of those attempts throughout a season have a completion percentage of, let's say, 60 or 62% or higher. That's really, I think, where you kind of separate the okay quarterbacks from the good ones. So anyway, going back through those numbers last year, to see the way Sports Info Solutions at least had them broke down, Roethlisberger was just 50.7% on throws 10 to 15 yards past the line of scrimmage in 2020, and that was 75 total pass attempts. Okay, so how bad is that completion percentage kind of contextualized league-wide? Well, of the 15 NFL quarterbacks that attempted at least 70 pass attempts of 10 to 15 air yards, exactly in 2020, Roethlisberger ranked 14th in completion percentage, so 14th out of 15, and 15th was Carson Wentz, who was considerably lower, really, at 47.4%, so 3.3% worse than Roethlisberger was in that. Now, the guy right ahead, the quarterback right ahead of Roethlisberger at 13th on that list was considerably high, had a considerably higher completion percentage than Roethlisberger, and that was rookie Justin Herbert, who clocked in at 55.8%. So there not only is Roethlisberger down the list, but when you get to where his ranking is based on the guy immediately ahead of him and the guy that's behind him, there's a gap there as well too. So I thought, all right, well, that's not that many. When you look at 75 attempts and obviously figuring out the incompleted throws, I said it shouldn't take me long to run through the 37 incompletions of throws of that distance, and it really didn't. It took me more time because I was just kind of overwhelmed, I think. Not overwhelmed, I guess.
Engrossed
in what I found, and how some of these incompletions happen there. And it's easy to run through your head. And when you see a lot of these plays, I remember almost all of them, to be quite honest with you. But I think when you put in a defining 10 to 15 yard, you remember the play, you probably don't remember the distance, right? And you don't stack them. At least I don't stack them in my head that way. You'd probably think I would, but
I kind of thought you did.
But I don't.
Computer brain.
I don't. But when you start going through all these, look, I mean, even the start of the season, throwaway, miscommunication, batted down line of scrimmage, a drop, a pass breakup. Anyway, there's starting to be a trend here, man, and not a good one. Now, of these 37 incompletions of that distance, there were 7 drop passes, and here's the thing. Here we go into the drop passes. It's a very subjective stat, right? But I think even I reached out to all of you, a couple of you guys in direct messages and said, what do you think about this? Is this a drop or not a drop? Surprisingly, you guys are tough critics. when it comes to this. In fact, I don't think Sports Info Solutions had a few of these as drops, whereas you guys definitively said these things were drops. So in short, 7 drop passes on those 37. 2 other incompletions that included the target slipping or falling to the ground when the football was in the air. 4 other included some sort of just blatant, I think, miscommunication. A lot of them back shoulder. Those I thought, Ben thought the receiver was going to do this. The receiver went the other way. That kind of thing. There were I think a few clear throwaways by Roethlisberger, a couple tip passes at the line of scrimmage, and then a few others with Roethlisberger being hit in the act of throwing there. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, well, Dave, couldn't you go through every quarterback?
That's what I was going to say.
And draw up some sort of list. I'm sure you could. I do not have the time to do that. However, we know that this team led the league in drops last year, right? And I just think if you were to take this league wide, and this is not definitive, but I would think that league wide, especially with these 15 quarterbacks, I think there would be. I think Roethlisberger would have more to gain by going on a play-by-play breakdown basis on what would I guess would be termed adjusted. Yeah, thank you. Adjusted completion rate on these. So
I agree.
That was my biggest, and it's not definitive by any stretch of imagination. And you could say, well, Dave, you cherry pick this, if you will. But I'm willing to bet that if we were to break this down with the other, let's say top 10 quarterbacks that finished in this list, I bet Roethlisberger would have the most to gain, and that he would sort of move up. I'm willing to bet we come away with it thinking that, you know what, it wasn't as bad as what the 50%, completion or, percentage was there. Now, is that any kind of an excuse overall? To some degree, yes, but I came away with it thinking that, man, that helps explain a little bit of the, not so much the depth of target, but the depth of completion. Area. That's, completing at least half of those incompleted passes there, which I think he had a good opportunity of doing, would have made a huge difference in his average depth of completion, or at least some, where it makes that number look more presentable here. My takeaway coming out of this is, I think there's at least a decent chance, if he gets some help on the back end of this, that we could see Roethlisberger get back to a 60 to 62% completion level on throws of 10 to 15 yards. He needs to. He absolutely needs to get back to that number if this offense is going to compete at the level that people want it to compete at. So
where it needs to compete at. So What now that I've spilled all that out there, and probably not in a good order or whatnot, what is your takeaway from this contextualization? Yeah, I'm just trying to separate the two, because I think you look at the data and the context and you say that Ben didn't struggle as much as the numbers indicate, just looking at him in a vacuum without worrying about, where it stacked up to the rest of the league. And so I think that's important to recognize on its own. But then the difficulty is the second part of saying, okay, I think you're right when you say that his adjusted completion percentage on those passes would be a greater impact and a higher adjusted number than other quarterbacks. But where still would that put him overall? It would probably move him up a little bit, but a little bit. It's impossible to say, because every quarterback has drops, and you could explain away, the same issues for any other quarterback in football. So that's where it's difficult to do, is try to put that in context for the rest of the league. But just looking at Ben alone, you could sit there and say that it wasn't as bad as the numbers overall look, because there's a lot of context there, because they did drop an obscene number of passes last season.
Right. The other takeaway, I think, is he had 75 such attempts. Now, he did not obviously play in the regular season finale. And I think the league leader in such attempts was Tannehill at, I don't know, what I put out there, 111, 116 or something along those lines. I think if you take 75 and you divide it by, what would be 15, right? You come up with, what is it, 6 or 5 a game? Is that, five such attempts a game? Whereas if you take Tannehill's number and divide it by 17, I guess where I'm getting at here is, do we necessarily, you would probably like to see Roethlisberger, I mean, if things go right with a running game, what's the right amount of maybe so-called attempts of 10 to 15 yards? Because some people tweeted back, boy, I'd sure would like to see that number go up from 75 in 2021. But it's one of those things I think it's impossible to project or quantify of what a good attempt number is, right? Because it all depends on down distance, situation, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he could just as easily have a very good 2021 season by attempting just another 75 if the completion percentage goes from 50 to 62, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, it's hard for me to sit there and say what the number needs to be or should be, other than I would say probably needs to be more. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the overall attempt numbers, even for the deep balls too. I mean, obviously we know that the number's pretty high overall, but Ben also threw a ton of passes last season. He would have led the league in attempts had he played in the finale against Cleveland, and he still finished, I think, third in the league in attempts with around 600. So I think there has to be some relativity compared to just percentage of attempts as well, where his number might be, on a deep ball might be lower than other quarterbacks because he just simply threw the ball more. You throw the ball more, you're going to have more chances to throw it downfield. So I think there's some numbers that probably have to be taken into consideration as well. I look more at percentages than I do just raw overall numbers, because those can be impacted by just the simple fact of how many games you played or how often you threw the football.
Would you like to see Ben throw less 20-yard or deeper balls and more 10 to 15 if in a vacuum and just a raw question scenario as it relates to what you know about the game?
I mean, short answer is
you have a higher, the shorter the throw, the higher the chance to complete the pass, correct?
Correct, but we knew that didn't always work out for the best last year because that's what the offense was.
Right. I mean, and I think it's a bit much to ask Ben to all of a sudden increase his deep ball completion percentage by, I don't know, 7-8%. Right. He likes what he likes when it comes to the deep pass. I think that's one thing that we've learned over the years is to kind of, unless he has somebody blowing past somebody, which I don't personally, I don't see a lot of that on, the Martavis Bryant, Mike Wallace player on the Steelers roster does not exist, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm hurting a lot of, look, when I'm right, I'm right. And I so far, my main concern about Chase Claypool has been right, has it not?
Yeah, he's not in that Wallace Bryant mold, not yet at least.
He's not the guy that's going to consistently separate by 3 yards down the field. He can separate. He's done that in certain situations. He's just not the way that he won a lot in college, and it's not the way he should be expected to win at the NFL level, plain and simple. And that was one of the main primary concerns that I had about Chase Claypool is him stacking guys on the outside consistently and giving Ben Roethlisberger the 1.5 to 2 yard separation that he just drops it in the bucket.
Yeah, to answer your question about deep ball versus the 10 to 15 yards, I mean, short answer, yes, I would like to see more intermediate stuff than the deep ball, just because the deep ball's been so ineffective for not just last year, but for the last several seasons. And will that change magically in 2021? I doubt it. Can it get better? Sure. Will it get significantly better? Probably not. So I think that might be the mantra of this offense is more of those horizontal crossers than it is going to be just the pure deep ball deep downfield. But again, on the percentages aspect of it, you said he had 75 attempts at 10 to 15 yards last year. Is that what you said?
Correct.
So that he had 608 total attempts. So that works out to 12.3% of those attempts being to 10 to 15 yards. Is that a good number or a bad number? It feels a little low. It feels a little light. But I'm going to look at the percentages of those things more than I will overall attempts, because I think that's the more important number here.
Ben, look, going back to raw advanced statistics, which a lot of people don't like to look at for some reason, because I think they don't like to see the results and how it stacks up, and because it becomes a negative on a Steelers player, then it's a trash stat if it doesn't fit the positive, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
All right. Ben had a average intended air yardage stat of 7.1 last year. 7.1 yards past the line of scrimmage, and that was even with him having the fourth most amount of pass attempts of 20 yards or longer. All right. Now, he also had led the league in pass attempts under 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, so that helped counterbalance that out. True or false? Ben Roethlisberger's average intended air yard number needs to be at least 8 in 2021.
I mean, what was it in past years? What was it in like 2017? And do we have that data?
Yes, we do.
Okay, because it's hard for me to, pick out a number.
9.2 in 2017 was in. Now this is intended, okay?
Right. Sure. So to answer that,
7.7 in 2018.
Okay.
2016. 9.4. I don't think it has to be in the nines. You
have 2014. Do you have data back to 2014?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. Never mind that. So to answer that question, I don't think it has to be at 9 something, but at least 8. That's kind of where the numbers say, 8 plus is probably where you want to be.
All right, and in his completion, average completion depth of target. Last year was horrible. It was 4.6. So his average completed depth of target was 4.6 yards past the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's down there, man. That is that's way down there. By the way,
again with the deep ball.
By the way, Dwayne Haskins of the qualifying quarterbacks last year, Dwayne Haskins was last at 3.6. And that's completed. All right. That number obviously has got to come up.
Sure.
But where does it have to be? I think it needs to be, at a minimum 6. And that's low, I think. I think you want to see that number 6.5, ideally. Completed air yard average.
Do you know numbers for any other top quarterbacks? Where their numbers?
Last year?
Yeah, last year.
Throw out a name.
Like Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, Allen.
Mahomes completed air yard distance.
Sure, it was high. 7 plus.
6.3.
Okay.
Brady, 7 even.
Yeah, that makes sense in an Arians-led offense.
Deshaun Watson, 7.3. Baker Mayfield, 7.4 yards. Russell Wilson, 6.2. Carr, 5.9. I think 6.5, I don't think is asking too much. Lamar Jackson had a 6.6. I don't think it's too much to ask to kind of equal that number.
Yeah, I agree.
So if we can have, and I think the biggest thing overall is that the gap in between the two, which last year Roethlisberger had a 7.1 average intended air yardage, but a 4.6 completed. So he had a gap of 2.5 yards. That to me shows where a lot of those incompletions were in that 10 to 15 yard range, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe?
Yeah.
In all that. So those are metrics I think that Ben Absolutely, and regardless of what the running game is, obviously you want the running game to improve, to take a lot of the onus off of Ben Roethlisberger. But I think you got to have that. Average completed yardage up around 6.5, and the intended number, 7.5 to 8, right around in there. And if he doesn't get those numbers, then I don't see how you can expect the offense as a whole to be consistently good throughout the year.
Yeah, and then in terms of just, the percentages of things, I think maybe that intermediate 10 to 15 yards should be, it was around 12% last year. I would say, just guessing, 15% probably this year is where I wanted to be, 15 to 18%, something like that. And the deep ball maybe comes down a little bit to maybe around 10%.
Right. I would agree. Is there anything else you would like? Maybe you would think that I wonder about Ben's throws contextualized. I don't know. I mean, we've gone over deep ball, we've gone over intermediate ball. Is there a reason maybe to look at those from 6 to 9 yards?
I mean, that starts getting pretty specific.
Is there any value of that? What would you guess his completion percentage would be on such throws? 6 to 9 yards. I'm vamping here because I'm setting my filters up here.
Yeah, maybe around 69%. I mean, it should be. He had 65.6 overall last season. I mean, closer to the line of scrimmage, the better that number should be. So I would say between 67 and 70%.
All right. How many attempts would you guess that Roethlisberger had during the regular season on balls, air yards, 6 to 9 yards past the line of scrimmage?
Bringing back a lot of games in my first podcast here. I don't know. I'll say 90.
68. Completion percentage. What would you guess the completion percentage was?
Give me a nice 69% there.
64.7.
That also feels low.
That does feel low, does it not?
A little bit. But again, how does that stack up with the rest of the league? I mean,
I can tell you that here in just a moment. What should the minimum amount of attempts be, I guess, if Roethlisberger had...
I don't know, go with like 300 or something.
I mean, I'm talking about the actual that actual distance. What did I say? Roethlisberger had 68. So what's a good barrier? 50 minimum attempts.
Yeah.
50.
Yeah, 50.
And that. All right. There were 28 quarterbacks that had 50 or more such attempts of 6 to 9 air yards. Completion percentage wise, Roethlisberger was 22nd out of 28.
What was number one? What's the top line number and what's the average?
Josh Allen led the league at 85.2 completion percentage on such 6 to 9 yard throws. What was your other question?
What's the average? So who was like 14?
Joe Burrow had 68 such attempts and completed 69.1%.
Yeah, so the number I was thinking of, I guess is around the NFL average, and Ben was below that, and by a pretty wide margin. Who is he sitting with in the bottom? Who's in that 22 to 25 kind of range? I'm guessing it's not the elite of the elite.
Matthew Stafford in that group, just a tick under it, 64.5. Drew Brees, 63.3%. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 60.2%. Daniel Jones, 61.2%. Drew Lock, and then you get into Drew Lock, Nick Mullins rounding out the list there.
Okay, so Brees surprised me, but yeah, I mean, the top names seem to be at the top. So, yeah, then you want Ben to be around 69, 70% on throws 6 to 9 yards.
All right.
So there you go.
I wonder how. Well, here's. Let me sort this real quick here while we're having a little bit of fun. How many of those would you think may have been drops?
Let's see. You said there were 68 total.
What did I say? 60. I've already lost 60 something. What did I say? 68,
I think it was 60.
65.
I think it was 68. I'll guess 4.
There
A little more.
were. Looks like 3 drops. Good answer. Good answer. Now this is SIS. That they might have been a little lenient. So I am showing regular season drops of 6 to 9 yards past the line of scrimmage. I'm showing 3 because a lot of Deontay's came
Within 0 to 5.
yeah, within 0 to 5 yards. In fact, they're not showing any drops for Deontay Johnson from
Ebron. I know Ebron had one of those, right?
He did have one of those.
Juju.
Chase Claypool had one, and James Washington listed as one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously drops were an issue, and that's going to bring down some of those numbers. So when you look at some of the inefficiency of this offense, it's not all on Ben, it's not all on the receivers. It's a cliche answer. I mean, it's not a great answer, but it's a team wide thing.
Do all these numbers that we just talked about make you feel any different about Roethlisberger heading into 2021?
Not significantly. I think the drops and putting some of that into context helps explain some of that stuff.
Did you come away from? Did my contextualization of Roethlisberger's 10 to 15 yard throws open your eyes about anything? Period. I mean, did it end up being worthwhile? I'm a big boy. I can take it.
No, I think it was. I think it's interesting to see the adjustment of what it actually was and what it would have been had you not counted or had you eliminated the drops and all that kind of stuff. But I think trying to then apply that to where that would then rank league wide without adjusting the other quarterbacks is you just can't do that part because
right
you didn't adjust the other quarterbacks, and I'm sure their numbers would have changed as well.
Did a little bit of you come away with? Well, I mean. Did you have the feeling that it wasn't as bad as what it was, what the numbers say, at least? Because I came away with a slight uptick in optimism about Roethlisberger's play last season.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've been more optimistic about it than a lot of just national media and even some Steelers fans. I think I've been consistent with that. But yeah, I mean, you knew they dropped a ton of passes last year. I mean, they dropped, what was it, 30 something as a team? So
more than that, 440 something, I think.
40 something, whatever it was. I mean, you knew that was going to affect the numbers once you start doing studies that take into consideration that kind of context. And that should be done more publicly as well. I don't know why, obviously it's good that we're doing it, but that's something the NFL should be spearheading, that kind of advanced stats and stuff like that just doesn't seem to be talked about a whole lot.
I think I'm going to do that in my post depot life, which will probably still include me having a depot life if I survive that long.
Where it's like Hotel California.
Yeah. I'm proud of you. You know a little bit of Eagles there.
Yeah.
You can check out any time you like. You just can never leave. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think the advanced stats there is definitely useful.
All right. Where else are we? We talked about Queen and the Eagles today. One of the best songs. Don Felder, member of the Eagles, heavy metal soundtrack. I mean, just a fantastic song on. It's got an Eagles sound to that as well too. So just a fantastic, probably my favorite song off of that whole. And there's a lot of great songs. I mean, obviously the Mob Rules is on that soundtrack as well too. One of my all-time favorite songs. But I think that song by Don Felder, absolutely fantastic.
Well, we wave goodbye to everyone 30 years and younger from the podcast. We thank you for listening. No, that's there you go.
Yeah,
so that's
all. Throw on that soundtrack today.
I will. Probably not. That's all I had, though. Anything else you want to talk about, Dave? Feel free, or we can get to some read emails and close out today's show.
Yeah, I suppose we've kind of strung this along pretty good here. I think we should get to some emails.
I like the Trey Turner photo you have on your poster. It's very art. Very angular.
You know why that's happening that way now, right?
Yeah, I know why.
All right.
YouTube type.
Yeah, people trying to circumvent YouTube and airing that stuff live. Hey, kudos for creativity. Sooner or later they're going to get caught though. On look, I don't create the rules or go out of my way to kind of break those kind of rules. But if you're going to put them out there and give me something to watch, I'll watch it. and until notified otherwise there. But that's why that's happening that way.
Oh, I know.
Let's see here if I can find a question or two. Josh Rubin wrote in, what do you think about the, and I talked to the guys about this, the worst mistake the Steelers have made in the last 5 years? What do you think about that conversation? Is Artie Burns the worst single mistake the organization has made in the last 5 years?
I know you had written about
Deshaun Spence
over LJ Ford. I don't know if that was worse than the act of drafting Artie Burns, because there's so much more process that goes into the draft process, and it's more calculated than kind of middle of the season stuff, and you're scrambling and you're just trying to make it work. I mean, neither were good decisions, obviously. I would still say Artie was a worse decision than starting Spence over Ford.
Makes you wonder how that game would have turned out, though, man. At least a playoff game. Josh Rubin wrote in, the Steelers lost to the Jaguars 45-42 in the first round of 2018 remains the worst disappointment of the past 5 years. After us all watching our beloved Steelers legend trash the Jaguars offensive line 2 weeks later, I can't help but still have the way James Harrison was blown off by the coaching staff that year as the worst mistake. It might have legitimately cost us a ring. Great conversation, but this is my pick over Artie Burns' disappointment. I'm angry again just thinking about this. Ha, Josh from Houston. So he don't like the way James Harrison was blown off there. Ted Webb writes in, for Alex, with training camp now being at Heinz Field instead of Latrobe, how will that affect or note-taking and vantage points to seeing the field action? Will it be easier or harder compared to years past? I'm sure you attend the Steelers Family Fest in years past. To me, just seems a little further away to capture the essence of training camp and to truly see what's going on. But yeah, we'll take what we can get. Also, one last thing. What are your main 3 items you definitely need when you're taking notes besides paper and pencil? There you go, Alex.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ted. Good to hear from you. I mean, yeah, we've done the Family Fest before, so it's not like the first time we ever covered a training camp practice from Heinz Field. It's just more annoying. Yeah, I don't think the site's angle is quite as good, and I don't know, you're sitting in seats instead of bleachers, so I just prefer the bleachers. I mean, I sound really like stuck up right now saying all this, but it's fine. I mean, we'll make it work. It's not a big deal. In terms of the essentials, yeah, it's notebook, pen. I need to get new Write in the Rain paper in case it rains, because I'm sure it will. And like I said, binoculars. I wanted to bring like a really high-powered set of binoculars when I thought they were going to go to SVC. I don't know what's allowed for Heinz Field, so someone can kind of let me know. I know there's limitations on photography and cameras and stuff. I don't know if that applies to binoculars or not, but probably that, so I can see some of the stuff real up close and personal.
All right, one final one before we get out of here.
And McChickens. And
McChickens. All right. Richard Jameson writes in, Dave, in your last podcast, you mentioned that you're not big on wearing Steelers shirts, but you do wear Steelers hats. Have you considered wearing matching Steelers COVID-19 mask with those hats? He says, I do. I also have a set for the Pirates in Star Trek. Not Richard, really, I think maybe you misunderstood my talking about Steelers hats. I do have Steelers hats, obviously, in my closet, but I don't even wear Steelers hats as much as I used to years ago. In fact, I run around. I've got a Las Vegas Golden Knights kind of trucker style hat that's really I wear day to day, to be quite honest with you. And don't ask me why. It's just I'm very habitual. I'm obsessive compulsive. I wear the same set of clothes. My wife jokes that I have a uniform, and I think she's joked several times. It's not a joke. I have a uniform. It's cargo pants. It's a gray long sleeve T-shirt, if you will, with gray sleeves, white socks, and black imitation Walmart knockoff Crocs, if you will. So that's it. I just am very obsessive compulsive when it comes to certain things. I don't like things cluttering my mind. I have 3 sets of this set of clothes that I alternate through. So I don't wear really a lot of Steelers garb, merchandise in general these days, and really haven't for years. Alex?
Are you asking about my attire?
I'm just saying, Alex.
Okay.
Anything to add or?
Well, I've a lot of like successful businessmen like Steve Jobs said that like they didn't want to have to think about what they had to wear that day, so they just always had the same clothes just because you just pick out the same clothes, never have to think about it. So I think that makes sense.
Do you wear a lot of Steelers? Do you mix in Steelers paraphernalia into your wardrobe here and there, more so than most?
I have a couple shirts. I haven't bought a jersey in forever, just because I don't know. When am I going to wear it? I guess. But I have a couple shirts. I don't wear a ton. I don't wear it to training camp or anything like that because I feel like it just kind of feels weird to do. I'm not a hat guy though, just in general. You're a hat guy, I guess.
Not really. I just do because I hop out of bed and want to put something on my, it looks like a rat's nest, Okay. So I just throw that on. In general, I mean, I don't know. I guess you could say I do wear a hat every day. It seems like.
Sounds like a hat guy.
Yeah, I guess you could say I'm a hat guy. I just have, like I said, just the Las Vegas Golden Knights one is the one that I wear and have worn for a couple of years now, almost every day, I guess. So,
what Steelers jerseys do you have or have you had?
I have. I think now I have a Lambert one because Ben's agent sent me one.
Wow.
And I think that's about what I'm down to now. I never have been a big jersey guy, period.
Yeah. Same. That's cool. I didn't know you had where that came from. That's very cool.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't wear merchandise these days and all, and I haven't for years. I guess that makes me a bad fan. I don't know.
No, I don't think it does. I think when you're breaking down Ben's passes 6 to 9 yards, I think it makes you a pretty good fan.
I mean, I don't sit here on game day with Steelers. Now look, I mean, you've obviously sent me some nice, Jerry Mullins signed autograph picture and Franco Harris mini helmet. I obviously have, large Steelers, trading card collection and those types of things. But I think overall, if you walked in my office, you probably wouldn't really, unless you looked at my computer, you wouldn't know I'm. I do have some high chairs out of Three Rivers Stadium that my wife bought me more than 20 years ago that I do have now set up in here. But other than that, you probably wouldn't know I'm a Steelers fan if you walked in my house. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I don't have a lot of stuff. I mean, I just don't have a lot of things on the wall in general. I just don't really care about that stuff. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of Steelers memorabilia. I did buy though a Big Daddy Lipscomb football card.
There you go.
A couple months ago, which is just sitting on my shelf. But there you go.
All right. So with that, I think it's a perfect time to get out of here. You and I will be back on Friday again. Hopefully have an interview included in that podcast. What else do we have to promote?
Man, I don't know if there's anything else to promote. Just keep checking out the site. Yeah, hopefully we have a couple cool interviews coming up for you guys that we'll be excited to share with you.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, especially with training camp upcoming, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, and for $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, and that's been very, very popular as well. Alex, thanks for your time. Welcome back. We will get back at it again on Friday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.